This is a little controversial because I am a free market Hoover Institution conservative. But have you noticed that all of the 19th century progressive dogma, the muckrakers against the robber barons, remember we had Carnegie and Rockefeller and Jay Gould and Fisk and you name it, the Mellons, all these people, we said that they had monopolized, offshored, outsourced, and we passed antitrust laws. Why is it that these masters of the universe can avoid $10 billion by offshoring their taxes to Bermuda, when we know that Facebook and Google and Apple did that? And why do they give us lectures about the underclass when they outsource jobs to other? I think people in Fresno would take a job at $12 an hour, assembling an iPhone. And why is it that 94% of social media is run by Facebook? And why is it this? I mean, Frank Norris wrote a book called The Octopus. Remember about vertical integration of the railroads? Why is Amazon all of a sudden going from selling books to vertically integrating all retail, delivery, food, media, Washington Post, and a classic example of a monopoly and a vertically integrated one? And so what I think we need to do in California, even though it might be quite controversial, we need to bring these people in. Of course, we won't until we change the demography or the attitudes of people, because the Democratic Party depends on their contributions. One of the most brilliant things they did was to conclude, we have a lot of exposure from the Democratic Party, but if it paid better, they'd be fascist. So we'll give them all the money we want, and they will give us a complete exemption from all of our illiberal, non-progressive practices. And the result is they monopolize, they outsource, they offshore, and even product liability. I was thinking the other day, we almost got killed on the freeway. One trucker was texting and moved from the left lane to the center. And then I thought, well, this is crazy. And then I saw another person with not just a phone texting, but with the iPad on the dashboard. And I thought, wow, people say that cigarettes can hurt you, and yet if you smoke, you can sue the tobacco company. You go into a bar and have a drink, get in a car, they sue the alcohol company. You can sue almost anybody for product liability when a product is not used as intended. Why does Silicon Valley say that you can text when they make a device that they know now has a higher rate of lethality than driving while under the influence? And yet nobody says, can't they just make an app that says it shuts down at 10 miles an hour? So what I'm getting at is that we have people with inordinate amounts of wealth, and I'm not against that, but what I am against are getting lectures from progressives about liberality and compassion when they have allowed our modern robber barons to get away with murder. And I think if you sat those people down and said, you know what, we're going to start looking at you in a different way, then people would not censor people at Google, or they would not turn those companies into an arm of the Progressive Democratic Party, because they've had a baleful influence. They really have. If you start, just yesterday, Apple donated to the Southern Poverty Law Center that's what they do. And they also divert attention because they're not regulated and they're exempt. They give an enormous amount of money to the Progressive Party, and it means the Republican or conservative candidate has a great deal of uphill fight against them. So we really do have a 19th century robber baron culture along the coast, and we have an impoverished pre-modern society that's not postmodern. Like the coast is postmodern, the interior is pre-modern, and that doesn't work in a single state. Finally, what's the prognosis if these things are not done? If we don't make these changes about immigration and politics and some of the people who are so-called trillionaire entrepreneurs, I think that we're going to be in two different states in a way that we haven't seen before. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. If you're in Palo Alto, I have a friend who was cited by the city because his mailbox was 2 or 3 inches too low. Think about it. 1/4 mile from where I live, person moved in. He brought in 4 Winnebagos that didn't run, put them on blocks. And at one time we had, I think, 15 dogs, there were 30 children. The bus stopped and everybody filled up the bus from that one residence. There were at least 5 different families. We used to have mosquito abatement districts. There was standing water all over, stagnant water. There is absolutely no regulation in the interior of California. I used to ride my bike. One of the reasons I quit is because canteens on the side of the road would go out in the afternoon or evening and take their plugs out and drain all of their water and waste all over the rural roads of California. It happens all the time. So what I'm getting at is that why we're talking and why I mentioned Stanford or Caltech or Facebook or Google, the state is regressing into a third world country. It really is. And there's parts of Fresno or parts of Selma that you wouldn't want to go to. When you wake up in the morning and there's dead puppies or dogfight carcasses thrown on your property routinely, or sofas or toxic waste, you can see that something's going on. And what's going on is we have, as I said, the greatest number of poor people, but also the most highly regulated state that is completely inapplicable to people who have no money. And so their idea is that when I came to the States, the first thing I did was break the law. So why should I follow any other subsequent law? There's no reason to. And so what I'm concluding with is that we're at a crisis point. California is either going to become Mississippi or it's going to become Massachusetts, but it's not going to be both anymore. It just doesn't work. And what we need to do is tell people on the coast that as compassionate progressives, you better worry about your brother in the interior. And when you don't, all of the noble rhetoric, all of the money, all of the hip, cool image, it's not going to exempt you from a moral reckoning. Thank you very much.